วัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับสวัสดีครับ
So looking at the situation right now along the Thai-Cambodian border, what is your personal observation on the current situation and why do you think it's escalating to a new level?
Well, very worried. I think, like most Thais, in fact, most people in the region or even in the world, including President Trump, because it is one of the 8 conflicts that he wants to end. So it's very worried that the escalation is still, building up. But of course, within this worry, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think the escalation could end quite soon with the role of the U.S., China, ASEAN, and of course Thailand and Cambodia. But it will be for a while, a few days at least. But we also see the possibility of resumption of negotiations in the new platforms or new venues, especially on the building a longer lasting, security areas along the 7 border provinces. I think this is very important on the ground that you need to build a better, more safer zone. You can call it humanitarian safe zone. You can call it demilitarized zone. This is going to be a new point of negotiation in the next phase. But this phase is almost ending, meaning that if the 2 countries go further than this with a high capacity, using high level of destruction of new weaponry, I think it's going to be difficult to control. And it could expand into a regional wars or proxy wars.
And looking at the situation right now, why do you believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I think there is number one, the involvement of major powers, particularly in the interest not wanting to see the regional war. I think for China, for United States, for Japan, for regional players, it seems to me that they share concern that they do not need another new regional war. That's one thing that is quite positive in this negative activities. I think this is a blessing in disguise, at least for the time being. And secondly, there are also proposed new venues, new ways of negotiating, talking. The advisor of the Prime Minister, Hun Sen, for one, is now involved in setting up a negotiation process. The old decision makers of ex-Prime Minister Hun Sen also setting up a new team to renegotiate with Thailand. And Thailand is also, the timeline of election is coming. I think the administration has no interest in further down this conflict, because the election is coming. And also, in terms of military operations, it is progressing much more than expected. It's compared to 6-7 weeks ago. I think they are almost reaching the limit of what they can do without escalating further. So you see a lot of good combination of supporting factors to peace, but it's still a long way to a real peace. At least a ceasefire or a resumption of perhaps different kind of talks could begin with the help of Washington, with the help of the regional players.
You just mentioned that there are a lot of supporting factors to negotiate peace between Thailand and Cambodia. We've seen that Malaysia has stepped in and of course US President Donald Trump has tried to step in. But why do you think Thailand does not want any mediation from third parties?
Well, I think that's a tactical negotiation approach. Of course, you must say that quite loudly for the domestic audience to hear, because there are a lot of questions from the last confrontation many weeks ago, that why we stopped short of victory in the Thai thinking. The victory is to reclaim the ancient temple. One particular temple, in fact, that led us to this second war, you see. So I think that loud and clear from the administration that they will not stop, they will not negotiate until the objective is reached, that is to secure the territories that the Thai public demand. But in reality, these areas, claimed areas, will be subjected to a new negotiation in a joint border committees, whatever form it will be in the future, a new maybe JBC or old JBC committees, and that has to be decided soon also. So the negotiation on this at this time will be maybe quicker, and that's another positive side. The media, international media, surprisingly of course, begin to address the root cause of the problem. That is a legacy of the colonial powers on the map.
The disputed area as well, right?
On the map, on the disputed areas. If you acknowledge that, it means that the political will increase in focusing on those issues. Once the resumption of negotiation begin, we expect that they will resume the negotiation on demarcation soon. On the average, they did that once a year. In certain meetings, they have not done that in more than 10 years. So it dragged on too long. I think the next 25 years of an official relations between Thailand and Cambodia, will begin with that real addressing of the root causes. The last 25 years of official relation is ups and downs, full of conflicts, wars, escalation, relations being cut or stepping down. Too many for the general public. Now they're demanding from both sides, from the administration, to do a better job very soon. So I think that is also positive. But of course there are so many negative, obstacles also. On the ground really, you have a lot of weapons being, in different strategic places, and they're still occupying these strategic places, tactical places, and there are also interests of some powers to support, this weaponry. So they have to be looked at also. And lastly, at the top of Cambodian chain of command, that has not changed in the last 40 years or so. And that has to be changed in the future in order to move into the new era. For the Thai side, we have another problem. We change that top of chain of command too often.
Right.
So I think there's not a balance. On one hand, you have a status quo too long. On the other hand, you have the instability at the top. But these also have to be addressed later by a special structure, special team, to help negotiate with the help of outsiders for the first time, in this bilateral conflict officially. Yes.
There's always ups and downs in terms of the relationship between Thailand and Cambodia, especially the disputed areas which have been subject of the conflict for so many years. So how is it possible to reach an agreement on this one, since it has been dragging on for several decades, and it seems to be the only reason in order to move on towards peace?
The attachment to this land for older generation is almost impossible to change that mindset. So what you can do is to buy time, which we had in the past. But it seems to me that in Cambodia, they stopped buying time. Maybe their time is running out. Maybe their leaders or the leadership is at the end, of their lifespan. So they have not by time anymore. They decided to take the case back to the international court. They decided to use forces to take control of the claimed areas. So to me, we need to go back and buy time for these old generations. But for the new generation, you need a mind change. Yeah. You need to change the mindset. You need to adopt a new attitude, which is not that difficult. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of new Cambodian leaders growing up in Thailand. I don't think they think the same as the old generation. If they are in power, I think we have a better ways to solve this. The attachment to the land will be different.
Right. And looking from the international community, how do you see Trump's role in mediating the border tensions between Thailand and Cambodia?
Very complicated, but at times positive, because no one else can do what he's doing. But on the other hand, it is complicated and sometimes potentially becoming destructive, taking side at the interest of geopolitical rivalries. That's one important concern that Southeast Asian nations have in mind all the time. They were subjected to these rivalries, in such a bad ways. China wars, Cambodian conflict, not to mention Vietnam War or liberation wars in this region. So this reminded them that a new king has returned, to the area. The new kind of colonialism is returning. If Mr. Trump is not careful, he'll face with more resistance on the objective that seems to be very noble, that is to end conflicts, opening up trade, fair, free, and move us to the new era, of relations.
From your perspective, should the US or Malaysia ever step in terms of the mediation between the two countries?
Nothing that we can do now. They already stepped in. So the question is, how can we make them to be more progressive, to be more positive? That's going to be a lot of hard work. The US needs to understand much more about this deep sentiment about the land, about the conflict, from the historical legacy point of view. America doesn't understand colonial, legacies as well. That's one. Secondly, and more importantly, I think the US needs to understand Thailand much better. We are an old ally. We are very much committed to this relationship. But we understand that the worries of China, the worries of other issues in other regions, neglecting some of the relations, for example, to build the capacity, to work together, on this conflict. It should have been done long time ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We exercise militarily every year, but nothing contributed to the peace, to the stability in this region. And that has to be changed too. The relationship between US and Thailand on the security front has to be reshaped to handle this kind of conflict, to prevent it to happen from the beginning.
What about the role of the ASEAN community in taking action or mediating the conflicts between Thailand and Cambodia? What can the ASEAN community do more to address this problem?
Well, disappointingly, of course, for many, but understandably by others, that ASEAN is not designed to handle this kind of complexity. In fact, ASEAN way is not to get involved with domestic or bilateral conflicts, but that's the old way. I think the new way is how to come up with a better, more balanced solution. I don't think most members have not yet found that balanced solution. It is just happened that countries that often come up with that balanced solution is Thailand. From the creation of ASEAN, Thailand found balances between Malaysia and Singapore, between Malaysia and Indonesia, between Indonesia and the Philippines. They were at war at that time. We found balances for them to work together against the communists. And after that, a few years after that, Thailand again found through a constructive engagement balances between the rest of the new ASEAN members, bringing them in from enemies to friends. The problem is now a country that found that balance are now in an imbalance itself, Thailand, and no one can help Thailand that well. So it is to be reminded, to other ASEAN members to come back to that balance, to help Thailand to get out of this problem, predicament. It's not easy. Indonesia seems to be more balanced these days, unlike others. I think Indonesia can play a role. Philippines are now becoming more and more balanced, except the issue of South China Sea.
Yeah, because the typical ASEAN way is to not interfere with the bilateral conflicts, but right now it's changing. That's why other nations have to come in and address the problem as well. Am I correct?
Yeah. I think the Secretary of ASEAN should propose to the leaders to set up a small troika type, like we used to do it, and engage officially in this dispute. It will not be that successful, but at least it's the best officially ASEAN members can do. And after that, ASEAN members, some countries should engage in the unofficial track, 1.5 track, like Thailand used to do for Myanmar, bringing in these different groups to meet, to talk, to negotiate unofficially, to complement, for example, in the case of Myanmar, the 5 points consensus to implement it. And years have passed, it began to gain more traction. That process could be duplicated and upgraded on this, because interstate disputes on territorial issues are not isolated to Thailand and Cambodia. There will be a few more cases for sure in the future among ASEAN members. So I think officially and unofficially there should be a better structure to operate, not depending on the old ASEAN way, official structure alone. The unofficial, new ASEAN way, 1.5 track, with the help of civil society and new partners, new countries that are willing to help. I think that will form a much better balance for ASEAN in the future.
Looking back at Thailand, if you have to assess the performance of the Thai government in dealing with the border tensions with Cambodia, what do you think they have done right or wrong, especially during the past few months?
Well, I think they have learned many lessons. One lesson is unity of the decision-making body or structure. That's very important. In time of crisis, you need to have one clear chain of command, one clear approach. You need to see the end game, end state. You need to have an exit strategy. I think that they now learned that and activate this structure from the top National Security Council to the combined, armed forces, different services into one. And they also try to manage the civil society, capabilities, into this conflict. I think that's what they have learned. But of course, there are also yet more lessons to be learned. The way they communicate, see, to the public, domestically, to the international audience, it's different. To Cambodia in particular, you cannot communicate one way with one formula. That they have not learned. And the mismatching of the communication strategies, not to mention the end state, end game plans, they have to differentiate. Diplomatic team has one place, but cannot lead everything. The military forces can be used on the ground, but not to lead all the way. It is their responsibility of the elected politicians represented by the Thai, of the Thai people, must lead in the end. And that role is difficult for any leadership, which often changes in Thailand. But they're now learning very fast. They have no choice. They must learn and win and bring back victory in whatever form to the Thai public. Otherwise, the next election will not be kind to them.
And the political instability here in Thailand also affects the policies in terms of the border tensions between Thailand and Cambodia as well. So looking into 2026, how do you foresee the border tensions between the two countries? Will it end really soon, or will it drag on even further?
Well, I think the politicians are now learning, the lesson very hard way. So in 2026, I think they will try their best to manage the root causes of the conflict in a much better ways. No guarantees that they will be successful. But this root conflict has not been addressed seriously, buying time for the last decade or so. I think that's number one. I think they must tackle these root cause problems head on. I think be more open, more frank with Cambodia on how they can solve these demarcation disputes. I think that's number one. That they'll learn, and benefit will be quite a lot in political terms.
And what do you think the government should do right now in order to de-escalate the border tensions?
They should opening up more communication channels toward peace, toward negotiations. They should not send mixed signals that they don't want to talk. Peace is ending, no more negotiation. These are the very negative communications to the other side. They should be more positive, with conditions, of course. But in order to achieve peace, what should we do? What should they do? You need to set up conditions for peace clearly for the other side to understand. So far, they have not.
Because it's like everyone is saying no to negotiations, but right now it's more like we have to talk a lot more in order to bring peace to both sides.
Negotiation became a victim of conflict. It is a process. You should not make a victim of a negotiation. Even the most hard-fought conflicts end at a negotiation table. You know that, I know that, they all know that. So they should not make a victim out of this process, but they should outline their conditions for peace clearly, from de-escalating in the area, demilitarizing the certain areas, and build up more positive environment for negotiations.
One last question. Do you think the border tensions will eventually come to an end by the beginning of 2026?
Well, I wish I could end with that positive note, but in reality, I don't think we are not getting closer yet, but we are now moving closer, but not yet close enough to say that by next year you see the light fully at the end of the tunnel.
Close but not close enough.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much for today. ขอบคุณมากนะคะ
ขอบคุณครับ